Hey, you guys. Welcome back to the salon, and it's the lead up to Halloween, so this is what we're doing for this. I know it's like kind of random, but I'll kind of explain. So, as any self respecting goth chick would, I would actually be remiss if I didn't go forth and sing the praises of the Addams Family, both the original cartoon by Charles Addams, of course, and the classic TV sitcom that ran from 1964 to 1966. I mean, Morticia Addams in particular was one of my very early style icons, despite my Wednesday getup I have on today. And Lurch was probably one of my first crushes. And yes, I was a very weird kid. Thank you for asking. So in 1977, I was 5 years old. And although the Addams Family had obviously been off the air since before I was born, it ran all the time in syndication, so I was really into it and I used to watch it a lot. So when I found out in 1977 that NBC was going to be doing a almost feature-length Halloween special with almost all of the original cast, and in color no less, I was totally on board. Now, I don't remember much about watching the special back in 1977 because, I was 5. But as I was scrolling through the Halloween offerings on Tubi in October of 2022, 45 years later, in case you don't feel old enough, I stumbled across the formerly very rare special. I think it only came out on VHS like many years after, and then it was like really hard to get hold of. But now it's streaming for free on Tubi, and I figured I would give it a rewatch to see if I could recall anything about it, or if it was like really good, like a hidden gem or something like that, because I just wanted to kind of like revisit it for Halloween because I love the fucking Addams Family, you know what I mean? I also thought it would maybe put me in the spirit for the upcoming holiday, allow me to spend some time with some of my most beloved characters like from my childhood. And while I will say that that aspect of the special is really, really cool, I mean, it's always nice to see Carolyn Jones and John Astin and Ted Cassidy and Jackie Coogan like all together, even though they obviously they looked ever so slightly older than I remembered seeing them, although not as old as you might think because, this was only like 10 years later, so they still all like looked pretty good, looked the same as on the regular show. But I have to say though, unfortunately, I think the rest of the special was a little bit of a wasted opportunity. And it seems like the network, NBC, really cheaped out. They shot the thing on video. They actually partly recycled a plot line from the first season of the original series because they had done like a Halloween show. I think it was episode 7, if I'm remembering correctly. And they kind of stole a little bit of the plot from that. They also didn't use much of the iconic theme song, and they didn't really keep with any of the characters' continuity. Like, for example, Cousin It's voice didn't sound the same as it sounded in the series, so there was that too. So this was directed by a guy named Dennis Steinmetz, who actually directed a bunch of episodes of Land of the Lost, which I was always a big fan of, especially the Sleaze Stacks, obviously. And he also did a bunch of soap operas like Santa Barbara and a bunch of other ones. And it was written by George Tibbles, who I looked on his Wikipedia page, and it looks like he's best known for co-writing the Woody Woodpecker theme song, which is pretty cool. And he also wrote a bunch of episodes of My Three Sons, Leave It to Beaver, One Day at a Time. Remember that show? The Betty White Show, stuff like that. So this show, it's actually not called the Addams Family Halloween Special. It's actually called Halloween with the New Addams Family, which, we'll get into maybe why that was in a minute. But it was kind of like a very convoluted tale, which involved a Halloween party, which, that should be par for the course. You also had something about Gomez's jealousy over his amorous brother who's visiting. And there's also a plot about a gang of criminals who are attempting to infiltrate the Addams house in order to find a safe that they think has all this money in it. So pretty much everyone from the original series reprises their roles in this special, except for Blossom Rock, who originally played Grandmama. She was actually sick during the filming, and she sadly died not too long after the special aired. And there was a character named Mother Frump who was only on some of the episodes, and she was actually played on the show by Margaret Hamilton, probably best known for playing the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wizard of Oz. And she didn't want to do the special, so they actually got other actors to do that. So the replacements for the two roles, for Grandmama, it was Jane Rose, who probably best known for the 70s sitcom Phyllis, which I think had Cloris Leachman in it. And playing Mother Frump was Elvia Allman, who was on the Beverly Hillbillies and Petticoat Junction. She was also, fun fact, the voice of Clarabelle the cow, like kind of one of the lesser known Disney characters. Although I will say that I went to Disney's Not So Scary Halloween party this year in 2022, and in the parade they actually had a Halloween hoedown float, and it had Clarabelle on it. And I actually like said to my sister, I'm like, hey, there's Clarabelle. She doesn't get much attention. So I just thought that was like kind of funny that I just saw Clarabelle like in a Halloween parade, and here we are like with the lady that's the voice, and she's in this Halloween special. So like I said, I love little coincidental things like that. So now obviously, since it's been more than 10 years since the original series, Wednesday, played by Lisa Loring, and Pugsley, played by Ken Weatherwax, have grown up. But I guess because the show still needed to have two grim, cute little kids, there are also junior versions of both characters. So there's an actress named Jennifer Surprenant, I think. She played Wednesday Jr., and Ken Marquis, who plays Pugsley Jr., and then they have the adult versions as well. It's not really entirely clear why this was absolutely necessary, because the younger kids, to be honest, don't really do much of anything. Pretty much the only reason they're there, I guess, is, like I said, just to make you feel like it's the old Addams Family because there's little kids. But also they're kind of like a little bit maybe essentially pawns in the subplot about Gomez fearing that his place in the family is being usurped by his brother Pancho. The brother Pancho, by the way, is played by Henry Darrow, who was in a bunch of stuff, but actually I recognized him because he played Trooper Hancock in the movie The Hitcher, like with Rutger Hauer from 1986. So it's that guy playing, and he looks like creepily from far away. You would think it was John Astin because they have him, dressed up the same. He looks like he's got the same suit and the same mustache and the same hair and all that. So anyway, at the beginning of the story, we find out that Gomez has been summoned to Tombstone, Arizona, of course, for a lodge convention. Like it's like a Masonic lodge type thing, but they don't call it that. Now he hopes that he's going to be promoted from, I think it's first degree snake to grand exalted serpent, I think, if I'm remembering it right. So there's kind of like a recurring joke about Morticia like constantly getting the title wrong. Like she keeps calling him like first class snake instead of first degree snake. And to be honest, that was only like kind of funny like the first time around, and then becomes like less so each time the gag is repeated, which I think it's repeated like at least 3 or 4 times. So I was just kind of like, okay. Like, I think it would have been funnier if it would have been, like, different. If she'd have fucked it up different each time, it wouldn't have been hilarious, but it would have been funnier instead of, like, repeating the same thing over and over. But I digress. I mean, I feel like one of the main problems with the special, I think, is that there are kind of a lot of running gags like this, none of which were all that funny to start with. So it's kind of like they make a funny joke and you're just like, and then, like, they do it again, and then they do it again, and it's like, instead of, like I said, changing the jokes up or having a running gag. I'm not averse to like running gags, but at least like have it be like super, super funny, and then like have it get funnier each time. Like ideally that's what you're supposed to be doing, but it's just kind of like that kind of stuff where it's just kind of like a mildly amusing gag and then they just keep repeating the same one. And I'm not going to fault the cast for that at all, because that's on the writer and the director and everything like that. The cast, everybody here is good. They look like they're doing their best with what they were given. So, I'm not going to put it on their shoulders necessarily. Now, one joke I did find very funny was the hugely massive deal that Gomez was making about going away on his trip, like to the lodge, and being gone for the big Halloween party, which, obviously it's the Addams Family, so they're going to have like a huge Halloween thing that's as big as Christmas. Like, he's going on this trip and he has like a car full of luggage. Like, he has Lurch take it out to the car and like the whole car is full of luggage. He's saying goodbye to Morticia, like he's not going to see her for like years and years. And he like totally like really hams it up, and he's like all sad and everything like that, and he's freaking out. And then when he's asked like when he's going to be back, he very casually just says, about 6 tomorrow. And like that made me laugh out loud, just because he was so good at like making such a huge fucking deal that he was going to be gone like forever, you know what I mean? And it was so funny. And actually this gag, they actually like successfully extend that to, there's like a scene that shows Gomez like in presumably his hotel room in Arizona, which he's already like, he just got there and it's already got like framed pictures of Morticia like all over the room, and he's even like got a life-size like cardboard cutout of her that he's talking to. you and shit like that. So that gag was funny. And that wasn't really a running gag. I guess it was just kind of more because it wasn't like repeated, but it was just kind of like a build up type of thing. But I thought that was like pretty funny. So one of the reasons that Gomez is having such a meltdown about going out of town is that his aforementioned brother, Pancho, is staying with the family because, like I said, they're having all their relatives over for this big Halloween celebration. And Pancho is just as hot-blooded as Gomez is, and he also used to date Morticia and is clearly still carrying a torch for her. He does the same thing like Tish That's French, like kissing her arm and everything like that. So he does like all the same shtick. Like she does kind of allow him to fawn over her a bit, but, you know, shuts him down when he starts getting too fresh, like citing the Addams Code and all this other stuff. But Gomez is still like real insecure about it, especially after, like, before he leaves, he hears Pancho telling Wednesday Jr. and Pugsley Jr. the legend about Cousin Shy, which is like the good spirit of Halloween who carves pumpkins for you that you leave out for him and leaves gifts around your Halloween scarecrow that you've trimmed. Gomez figures that it's the father's job to tell his kids that story and not the uncle's job, so he gets like really, like I said, insecure about it. Incidentally, I actually really liked the idea of doing like a trimmed scarecrow like a Christmas tree. Like, does anybody do that? I wonder. Like, I guess they kind of do. I mean, I know Halloween trees are like a thing now, and maybe that's better because you can like use that for other seasons and whatnot. But I just thought the whole concept of like putting the pumpkin head like on top of the scarecrow, like it was like the Christmas star or angel or whatever, was like super adorable. And then like they put presents under it, and the presents were kind of like wrapped in orange paper with black bows, and I thought that was like really cool too. I mean, it's like pretty easy to entertain me, as you can see. So while all of this stuff is going on, like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on in this. Each character is kind of doing their own thing. So you got Grandmama, and she's helping to prepare the hors d'oeuvres for the party. Like, you know, there's a big thing about like jumping eggs that jump out and you step on them and they scream and stuff like that. Mother Frump is trying out some flying potions with varying degrees of success. Lurch has a big net and wants to catch a pterodactyl. Also, the grown kids, Wednesday and Pugsley, like they're played by the same actors, but obviously they've grown up now. So they've come home from college. Now, Wednesday has been studying music and she plays the piccolo just like Gomez does. And she plays like these really like experimental, like sounding with like really high pitched notes that break all the glass and everything. And obviously that's amazing. Like they talk about how talented she is. And Pugsley has been in Nairobi learning to be a witch doctor in a bit which is ever so slightly racist, I'm gonna say. I mean, it's maybe not that bad, but I was like watching it going, I don't know if that'd fly nowadays. There's actually like another funny gag that made me laugh anyway, because I could relate, later on, where both the Wednesdays and both the Pugsleys, like juniors and seniors, they dress up in Halloween costumes, which just have them looking like regular people. Like, I think, like, Wednesday Senior, like, has a tennis outfit, and, like, Pugsley Junior has, like, a baseball uniform and stuff like that, and Morticia is, like, totally horrified, and it's, like, I just thought that was, like, so funny, because it's, like, you're not used to seeing them look regular. I'm like, yeah, you guys do look like shit, like, it's normal people. I was also horrified. So I felt Morticia's pain. Morticia is also lamenting that Pugsley Sr. mentioned wanting to get a tan because it was all the rage at the college that he was at, and that Wednesday Sr. wanted a Kawasaki, to which Pancho says, oh, the Addams clan has always been accepting of mixed marriages, which again, ever so slightly racist, is it? That sounds a little racist. It's very, like, cringy. But it's kind of, I thought that bit was funny because, not the Kawasaki bit, but just like the whole bit where the kids were like dressed up as normal people, because it was just very much like Grandmama is like, what are they teaching kids these days? You know what I mean? Because like they wanted to have a tan and shit like that, which I thought was like super funny because they're right. I mean, you know. So meanwhile, as all the party preparations and all those other shenanigans are going on, there's also, in case I didn't mention it, a group of crooks that are like stashed away in some command center somewhere. They've clearly installed spy cameras in the Addams house somehow at some earlier stage, because they're monitoring like what's going on there. And they're actually the ones that sent the message like to have Gomez go like to his lodge, because they're trying to like get him out of the house. You know what I mean? So evidently they've got this plan where they're going to try and like talk their way in and find this safe that they heard from somewhere is on the premises, though they don't know exactly where it is. is. So they kind of like need to be in there for a long time so they can look around and find it. So the first attempt at incursion is done by a dude named Mikey, who's played by kind of a well-known character actor named Vito Scotti. And he pretends to be a tax assessor. And so they basically like give him the run of the place. Like they kind of show him around and let him do what he wants. But obviously, if you've seen any episodes of the Addams Family at all, you'll know that whenever a so-called normal person like enters the Addams domain, they freak out at like every little thing, much to the Addams confusion. They're like, what the fuck is, you know what I mean? This was actually one of my very favorite parts of the original show, like, and the cartoon that inspired it. It seemed like kind of in a weird way like ahead of its time, because it kind of showed like the very weird like Addams Family as just these normal loving people who could never understand these odd actual normal people that were like coming in their house, and they were just like disembodied hands in a box, and it's like getting stretched on a rack for relaxation, and oh my god, cutting off the buds of roses and just keeping the stems, so weird. And then like the Addams Family's just like, what the fuck, what's your deal, you know what I mean? And it's like that always like made me laugh. I don't know why. It's like I just related to that really hard, I guess. But yeah, so more of that kind of goes on in this section of the movie. Like, you know, for example, like Mikey's eyes bug out at Lurch. I kind of feel like that happens in every episode. Like some normal person comes to the door and Lurch answers it and they're like, what? You know what I mean? Because he looks like all big and strange and everything. Then like Mikey starts getting more and more manic as he's kind of like making his way around the house. Like he sees there's a female thing who's called Ladyfingers, which that was another thing that made me laugh, who's kind of like stirring the soup in the kitchen, and he wigs out at that. Then he gets hugged like strangled by Lewis, the killer plant, which was very funny. Then he gets asked to help Fester like pull out his wisdom tooth like with pliers. So you know what I mean? Because you know, it's Elko Fester. And also he gets mauled by a kitty cat, the lion. So there's that. So all this kind of stuff happens, and Mikey sort of flees the house in terror. And then the Addams are all standing around going, what a weird guy that was. You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, I agree. So then Mikey goes back to headquarters. Oh, I forgot to mention too, that there's also, and I think if you watch it nowadays, like if you didn't grow up in the 70s, there's a lot of references in here and like jokes in here to specific things that were happening in 1970s. They were very like topical in 1977, but nowadays like people probably don't know what they are. And because this one guy was named Mikey, there was a gag in there about Life cereal. If you guys like, if any of you are old as me, then you'll remember there was a commercial back in the 70s for Life cereal with this little character named Mikey who doesn't like anything, and you know, but he eats Life cereal and he's like, he likes it, hey Mikey, you know what I mean? So they did a gag like that, and that made me laugh, but I was just kind of like, oh my god, I feel so old right now, you know what I mean? So I just thought I would bring that up. So Mikey returns to headquarters and he just quits the whole heist because he's just like, fuck that noise. It's like and he's all like fucking, oh my god, like he's totally broken his brain or whatever. So the remaining crooks, who were named Bones Lafferty and Louis the Lord, have to resort to Plan B, which entails dressing up in costume and going to the Addams' party, posing as like distant relatives because they're only having family this year, so they have to say that they're related to them. So Bones dresses up as a pirate, and then Louis dresses up as Bo Peep because, you know, it's the 70s and a man in drag is always going to be like, you know, used for comedic effect. And the pair also take along a couple of like Speedo wearing bodybuilders for some reason. I think their names are Atlas and Hercules. Like, I guess they're supposed to be like their muscle in case something goes wrong, but they don't like make that all that clear. I'm like, why are they taking those guys with them? I don't know. And there's also like a joke too where Morticia like talks about their bulge, and I was like, oh my, that was saucy for the 1970s. But yeah, I thought that was funny. Oh, and they also take along a couple who look pretty much exactly like Gomez and Morticia, except they have like little masks on. So you know what I mean? So there's that. In case you didn't notice, like by what I've been saying so far, this 74-minute special, which was 90 minutes with commercials, has a bunch of unnecessary characters and a bunch of unnecessary like plot tendrils. I kind of feel like this would have benefited for being streamlined some. I mean, really just the Halloween party angle would have been fine. You didn't like need the crooks and shit on top of it. Now, there is a funny bit where, because Lurch is my favorite. I love Lurch. So anytime they like do some stuff with him, it's like really amusing. So there's kind of a funny bit where Lurch like sort of falls in love or becomes smitten with the guy who's dressed as Bo Peep and kind of like forcefully dances with him all night, like kind of like dragging him around everywhere. It's like super funny. And then like the guy is just like trying to get escape the whole time, and he's like I said, his eyes are bugging out and whatnot. So there's that. Like that's funny. But most of the kind of like ensuing party and the attempted heist go about as you'd expect it to go. There's lots of like misidentifications, misunderstandings. There's kind of like another complication with Poncho trying to get with Morticia, but then getting with the other Morticia. And then there's Morticia's sister, Ophelia, who's also played by Carolyn Jones. Like she shows up and she's trying to jump on Gomez's dick, and it's just like, it's a whole thing. There's like a whole lot of stuff going on in this. Yeah, so there's all these like misunderstandings and all that kind of stuff. And even Gomez contemplating suicide at one point. Yes, really. He actually starts doing the Hamlet kind of like to be or not to be speech, which is like the should I kill myself or not type of thing. Because after like he thinks that he sees like his brother like fucking around with his wife, who is actually the other Morticia, and then like he gets a letter that he doesn't get to be Exalted Serpent or whatever. So he's just kind of like, I mean, it only lasts a couple minutes, but yeah, like he's all like despondent and he's gonna like kill himself and stuff like that. And I was like, whoa, this got dark for a second. But yeah, but you know, everything works out okay in the end. Like the criminals get caught, Gomez and Poncho like bury the hatchet, they sort out all the fake people that are running around, and the whole family gathers around the Halloween scarecrow to open the presents and sing a Halloween carol, which is called A Merry Shh Creepy Halloween. That's actually the name of it. I looked it up on IMDb. While the invisible cousin Shy like shows up and parts some cobwebs, you know what I mean? So I gotta say that even though like I adore all these characters, I mean obviously, and I was happy to see them like almost all of them together again, I kind of wish that the network would have like splashed out for more quality production. I feel like the Addams Family deserved a lot better, especially because they were given essentially like a 90-minute time slot. You know, they could have made a whole feature film. I mean, this is technically a feature film. I mean, the jokes in this were like hit or miss, mostly miss, sadly, and were kind of like repeated too many times. You could also tell that some scenes were like padded out, like to meet the longer runtime. Like sometimes people would like be mugging and then they would like hold it for like a few seconds too long, because you could tell they were trying to like make it longer, you know what I mean? And which is weird because there was so much going on in this, you wouldn't think that you'd have to pad it out, so it's just like a very weird kind of thing. Special effects were also kind of lacking. Some of the effects, honestly, in the original 60s show looked better, and I will say that even though it was kind of neat, like to see the Addams is in color, I think I would have preferred them to just stick with the black and white, because in color, everything just looked kind of like plain and humdrum. Like the house is cool, but it just seemed too colorful. I'm just like so used to seeing the Addamses in black and white and everything looking like all fabulous and gothic and everything. But so when it's in color, it's just like there's too many colors like going on, and it was like distracting. A lot of it was like shot in the daytime too, and that didn't really contribute much to like kind of like a creepy Halloween mood. Now I did love like Lurch, because I love the way he doesn't even talk all that much, but I just love that every time somebody does some dumbass thing, like a normal person comes in and does some dumbass shit, and he's just like and he just like groans and shakes his head. It's like that makes me laugh like every single time. So I did like that he did a lot of that in this. And you know, and Gomez and Morticia obviously are cute as buttons, as they always are. But on the whole, I mean, I kind of feel like this special was just not really that special, you know what I mean? It was kind of like, conversely, it was really weird because at the same time, it was very, very overstuffed, like as far as the plot went, and it seemed kind of rushed, but then it also seemed kind of like it dragged too at the same time, which is quite an achievement, you know, to be honest with you. It just seemed like the network just kind of threw it together real quick to see if there was any interest in maybe rebooting the series, which I think is why they titled it with the new Addams Family, because I think they were gonna do, I think that may be why they put like the kids in there, like the little kids, because they were like, oh, well, if we wanted to reboot this series, we have to have the cute little kids, because that's just what you did. It was the 70s, and we can't have like, you know, now that Lisa Loring and Ken Weatherwax are like adults, like, you know, that's not going to be like the same dynamic, so we need to, like some little kids. So maybe that's what they were trying to do. I don't really know. I mean, I feel like it's kind of like a shame. Like I said, it was kind of like a missed opportunity because it's the Addams Family and it was Halloween. I mean, this could have been like fucking epic, you know what I mean? But as it was, you know, I kind of just got like a couple chuckles out of it, and, you know, that warm, fuzzy, nostalgic feeling at seeing some of my childhood idols once again. But I kind of wish that they had put a little bit more money and a little bit more effort into it to make it like more of an extravaganza type of thing instead of just kind of like a thrown together whatever. So, and like I said, I'm not blaming anybody in the cast on that because they were all great, but it was just kind of like, I think it was like the writers and the network more than anything else. So anyway, that will do it for this installment of the Salon. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you guys have a fun Halloween. I'll probably see you guys over on my other channel before that happens. So thanks everybody for watching. Remember to like and share if you like this content and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also go over to scaresalon.com where I have a bunch of written content, book reviews, movie reviews, stories, all kind of different stuff. So go check it out, and I will see you guys again on the next one. Bye.